I'm Emanuel Kuntzelman, social entrepreneur, writer, spiritual seeker, and longtime proponent of giving purpose to our planet. My story began some 50 years ago when a college professor first reminded me of the critical situation that we face today with our planet, with our economies, with our social systems. He pointed out that population, armaments, technology, environmental deterioration, all of these factors were increasing or deteriorating, as it were, at an exponential rate. And that if you graph the growth of population and environmental problems over time with the exponential curve of the increase of the quantities of people, pollution, armaments, technology, that really the curve of the graph was heading straight up in a kind of exponential increase of all these quantities over time. And really indicating that about now, this new millennium, 2020 as we're approaching it, that quite honestly, we were literally running out of time. The graph, as it increases of quantities of all kinds of things you can plug in there. The salinity of the Baltic Sea, the amount of ice on the Greenland glaciers, so many different factors. Anything you put in there, you have this exponential change that shows that we are literally coming to the end of time as we know it. This was nearly 50 years ago, 1970, my first class in college, and a very wise sociology professor by the name of Jeffrey K. Haddon pointed this out to me. And I found this message so inspiring that at that moment I changed my whole life and decided that I needed to dedicate my life, the meaning, the purpose of what I do this time on earth, to doing the best I could to resolve these critical problems. And I also realized that, it's not a question of taking the weight of the world on one's shoulders individually, that it has to be done systematically, that our systems are breaking down, and our systems are based on a false sense of purpose. We're talking about creating a planet with purpose. And certainly everyone would say, well, there's purpose out there. What are you talking about? Well, the purpose we've all seen and lived in and been socialized into is a purpose based on the materialistic pursuit. It's been called the story of separation, where we're not really in touch with our own inner will and our highest ideals, the best of human beings. We've lost that sense of purpose, and we've sold out to the materialistic paradigm. Philosophically, intellectually, spiritually, it's all become how much money, how much power, how much prestige. What can we accumulate to give ourselves purpose in life? And I think if we all really do a little mind check, heart check on ourselves, we know that's not the way it is. That's not the way we want to live our lives. It isn't about accumulating a bank account or an extra car or a bigger house. It's about living together in peace, harmony, and cooperation. So I think we're all well aware of the problems. The problem primarily is ecological breakdown. And we all know that we live in an ecosystem, this incredible, beautiful planet, maybe the crown jewel of the cosmos itself. Who knows? But certainly we haven't yet discovered another inhabited planet and anything as close to the gorgeous jewel of planet Earth floating in space. So we're part of this ecosystem. We are the crown jewel of it itself. And we're the reason this planet's here. But we can't thrive, or even survive, for that matter, if our systems are breaking down. The planet is deteriorating. The fish are disappearing from the ocean. The coral reefs are drying up. The ice is melting. It's an environmental disaster happening before our very eyes. And likewise, the accumulation of a materialistic paradigm of always striving for more at the expenses of others is not the way we're going to go. We need to seek and live in a cooperative ecosystem, which is the way it was from the very beginning. When the first cells of life appeared, they didn't go into a competitive phase to see which could become the supercell. They worked together in cooperative relationships to find out how, through community and purpose, life could evolve and move forward. And we are the product of that, and we need to carry through. We need to shift a giant trend towards materialism and back towards the spiritual nature of who we really are. And I saw this many years ago and dedicated my life to doing my part in bringing this awareness to the general public. Early on, as a social entrepreneur, I found out that one of the best things I could do to make a difference in people's lives was to promote cultural exchange. I'd always been interested in exchange programs. My parents were high school teachers. They led cultural exchange programs abroad. We hosted students in our home. I was an exchange student myself as a part of my vision and mission for doing what I needed to do. I realized that travel was essential. We get so locked up into our little narrow world views, the communities we live in, the values and principles on a very narrow scale sometimes. And we honestly need to be global citizens. We're all in this together. There are no walls, there's no borders, really. There are artificial lines drawn in the sand, but we're one people on one planet living and working together. And cultural exchange seemed to me a key to bringing this deeper understanding of peace and world cooperation together. And quite honestly, I found early on, I used to give talks 35 years ago, lectures on the transformation of society, philosophical principles. And yeah, it sounded nice. People listened to it, but it didn't change people's lives. They would listen to me and probably 2 days later have forgotten pretty much everything I had said. But cultural exchange, putting students in a new country, in a new home, having hosts, taking care of those students, forcing their lives to literally transform and adapt to a different culture really makes a difference. And it forces people to broaden their horizons, to open their minds, to step out of their social conditioning and embrace a newer, brighter, broader worldview that encompasses the whole planet. So I realized that working in the field of cultural exchange was right livelihood for me, and I did it wholeheartedly. In 1985, I opened several cultural exchange organizations, one in Spain, one in the United States. Today, the U.S. organization is known as Green Heart International. 35 years later, going strong, and creates cultural exchange opportunities for 12,000 participants annually from 85 countries around the world. So Green Heart and the work of cultural exchange is doing the real hardcore work of bringing people together, of opening those minds, of getting them to appreciate and really love a new culture and different people. And it brings people together in a heartfelt way. It's good work. It continues. It always will. Along with Green Heart, I also set up a foundation in Spain, the Foundation for the Future, to encourage young people to gain a wider vision of what they wanted to do in life. I wanted other people to have the same kind of epiphany I'd had way back in college when I saw that our world was in such a critical moment. that we were running out of time, and that the moral obligation of every human being on this planet today is to really live our life in the way we can best contribute to resolving this situation, to bringing down the environmental problems, to raising awareness of an evolving consciousness, going beyond the story of separation into one of wholeness based on love, peace, and harmony, which are the true values in our human heart and soul. And I encourage people all over the world to find their way along these same lines. And the Foundation of the Future in Spain has long promoted these ideas, given grants to startups and environmental centers. We've worked for many years on the island of Ibiza. The Casita Verde there for the last 20 years has been our environmental project center, as showing people the way that we can live in a different style of life and be happy and have all the creature comforts, but maybe have less of an impact, a smaller carbon footprint on the planet, and contribute back, give back more than anything. We all need to give back. We've been blessed with life on this beautiful planet, with human consciousness now striving to its highest capacities. These are incredible blessings that we have, but yet somehow we don't seem to appreciate them, or sometimes we turn them to our own advantage or our own materialistic pursuits. And we need to get back to the true spirit of what a human being is, why we're here, and how we can live together. So Green Heart International, the Foundation for the Future, and more recently, the Global Purpose Movement have been some of my projects and undertakings to contribute to a growing, increasing awareness of this need to change the way we think and feel about our relationship to nature, to others, and at the end of the day, it's about our purpose here on life. I believe that evolution and change moves on a large scale in waves, with crests and troughs going up and down. And right now, our civilization is at the depth of a trough, driven there by materialism. We need to make a turn, a momentous, once in human history turn, really, towards growth, towards an enlightenment, really, beyond anything we've seen before, the Renaissance, the Age of Enlightenment. Yes, those were key moments in human history, but none has been quite as significant as this moment in time right now. This will define the entire future of humanity. This moment will make the difference of whether we go to breakdown and destruction, or we go to break through and rise up, understanding an ever higher level of human potential and consciousness that will lead us forward to a better, brighter, and harmonious future. And so getting back to this idea of what could I do as a contribution to this without shouldering the entire burden of all of these issues, but yet trying to be as ineffective as possible, I realized I had to be a catalyst for change, creating some kind of spark that would make a difference, that would get people going, would light up something in people's minds and say, yes, I too have had an epiphany. I want to dedicate my life to making the world a better place with higher understanding. And there are so many groups, individuals, organizations out there all working towards these lines, and more all the time. I remember seeing a tape of Paul Hawken giving a speech, And he talked about the hundreds of thousands of like-minded organizations around the world, all working basically on this same concept. And as he spoke, they started to roll the names of organizations behind him, and there was one after another, and they rolled them faster and faster and faster. And he said we could sit here for 3 days and we wouldn't finish listing the hundreds of thousands of organizations worldwide who are worried about the environment, who are worried about the impacts of the increase of population, the growth of armaments, the abandonment of true human values. And they're everywhere. But yet we need to work together. We need to find this common cause. Just as those first cells of life found a way to come together in cooperative community, working together to build a stronger force as one out of the many. We need to do the same thing with all of our organizations worldwide. So I visualized a kind of hub of a wheel taking us forward. And the hub could be that neural point, that focal point where people could cross over, cross through, meet up, talk about their common ideals, find ways to share resources, energy, spirit together, combining their efforts, promoting other people's programs. It could all work together in a cooperative spirit. It's a new system of thought. It's part of this new paradigm. You know, we now have the answers to the deepest, most important spiritual and philosophical problems that humanity has always faced. Why are we here? What's this all about? What is the meaning and purpose of life? We now know that. We know that this isn't a long range of random materialistic happenstance that leads to a survival of the fittest, social adaptation for survival mechanism that drives evolution. You know, the Darwinian concept of natural selection for mere survival is really shown to be quite immature and definitely not the way that evolution works. We work towards defining, refining, and specializing the highest qualities of the human mind and consciousness. And that's where we are now. But we need to bring this awareness to the general public. Quantum physics tells us quite literally, we're all one, and we're all interconnected. The discovery of Bell's theorem some 50 years ago demonstrates that if you entangle elementary particles and then separate them in an accelerating lab by many, many light years, two particles that have been together and been separated, if you change the spin or properties of one, another one, light years away, will instantaneously change as a result of that initial entanglement, that initial connection. These are physical facts. This is the way the world really works. It's astonishing. It's hard to even grasp because we're so programmed into thinking in the Newtonian billiard ball concept of materialistic action, reaction. One thing bumps into another, that creates an effect. But there is so much meaning and purpose and interconnected communication behind it all, the web of life. We understand this in cosmology as well. Our universe is not just a random explosion of physical events cascading through time that accidentally produce this moment here and now where we sit and have this conversation about consciousness. No, the cosmos is filled with the essence of purpose. That's why it came here in the first place, to build on, to create a human consciousness like ours that could come to this point to understand this entire evolutionary process that has now come full circle and made us realize how much purpose there is in it, and that we have a critical role in expanding that purpose, maybe even taking it to higher heights, a new level of consciousness where we break through the limitations of our material society and go back to the true spirit of our human nature. That's what we're on. That's what physics, cosmology, biology, all of the sciences today on these cutting edge discoveries are showing us that this is, in fact, the way the world works. And now we have to understand that and adapt that to our way of living. We have to live with the values that the physical universe is showing us are what we are made of. We are cooperative, entangled, communicating web of life, all working together. And it's part of all human beings, no matter where they live on the planet, no matter what ethnic background or race or gender or any other inclination they come from. We're all one. We're in this together. And the organizations striving to come together to cooperate in this field of global purpose, they need help. They need coordination. They need to coexist. They need to find higher coherence. Really, I would say right now, the breakdown in our society, the confusion reigning everywhere, the divisions and the discussions and the disputes and the wars going on and on and on, it's this basic lack of coherence. The universe is made of waves. It's one huge vibration. It was from the very beginning. They say that it was a big bang. That's the common term. Actually, it may not have been a bang at all. It was more, as many physicists have said, it was more like a great thought than a great explosion. It was the beginning of a vibratory wave of consciousness seeking an evolutionary goal, which is you and I sitting here today together discussing this and realizing that we now understand this trajectory of the evolution of consciousness over 14 billion years of time. But these waves need to be coherent. They need to flow together. You know, I think if we just take two simple waves and one's on this phase and another one's interwoven with it, we can see that those waves cancel each other out and they don't work together. Whereas if they coincide, then the wave frequency will actually double when the waves overlap. Whereas if they're out of phase and one's going up and one's going down, they cancel each other out and there's nothing at all. Very simple example, but that is what's going on. You can take the example of talking about waves in water. That's where we most commonly see them. If you're a swimmer, you will know that swimming laps in a community swimming pool can sometimes be very difficult. There are no big waves, but what there is a lot of random choppy water. All kinds of kids and happy people splashing around in the municipal pool, which is fine. But if you're trying to make progress or get exercise and swim in the pool, is all you ever do is get splashed in the face by all these random waves, get water up your nose and in your eyes and all the rest. Whereas you go out into the ocean, for example, one of the most powerful energy, incredible forces in the world, and you can have, yes, perhaps very dangerous 10-foot wave swelling on the horizon, but if you're an experienced surfer and you go out there and you time that wave just right, you pick up its energy, it gives you a rush, you have one of the rides of your life, and you take that energy and that flow because it's coherent and it drives through and it brings you safely to shore. And so right now, in our politics, our conversations, our social systems, we're in the municipal pool. Everybody's doing their own thing in their own way with really no regard for the person next to them. We're all making a big splash, but it's going nowhere, and it's kind of a nuisance. So we need to find this inner coherence. Philosopher, writer Ervin Laszlo, one of my good friends, he's written 75, 80 books through life, and his big idea and what he's most stressing now is finding this coherence, super coherence, he calls it, where the waves do coincide, where they do amplify, where they flow freely and naturally from one side to another in a given direction with a common purpose. This is the wave of the new paradigm, and this is what we need to discover. But to get on this same wavelength, to be in phase with the evolution of consciousness, sometimes we really need to drop some of our expectations, our assumptions about the way life is, ideas of what we think we're meant to do here on life. Change some of those concepts. You know, from a very early age, we're told, well, you have to get a good job, you have to make money, you have to be successful. And this is all based on a materialistic model that you can measure. How much money's in your bank account, how many cars do you own, all the rest. But there is a much more significant, immeasurable tone and feel to life. And that's the state of our spirit, the position of our consciousness, the intuitive free will of who we are, how that blends with the purpose of why we were really put here and what we are meant to do. And it's different for everyone. We all have different qualities. And so there isn't a single fixed answer in helping one to create purpose on the planet. It's a call to everyone to explore it for yourself. Sit down, relax, have your epiphany. Realize this is, by far, the most critical moment in human history. There's never been anything like this before, and there probably won't be for thousands of years into the future. This is the most important moment that our civilization has ever lived through. And you're living here on this planet, in this moment, right now. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is you need to figure out what your role is, what your purpose in life is, how it contributes to the overall flow of the evolution of consciousness, how you can best contribute to helping other people understand their purpose and do the same. So that we all get on our surfboards together and we ride the same huge wave of change that's coming. It's here. It's there for us to feel the energy, get on it and be part of it, and feel that joy and that exhilaration of true monumental shift in consciousness that's happening within us now. Be part of it. Be on the cutting edge of your own board. Find the wave within you and feel the way forward to find your purpose in life. That's the purpose we're creating on this planet. A way of working together, of getting organizations to understand that it's only through cooperation that we will overcome the divisiveness in society today. And it's only through a little bit, maybe a lot, of self-sacrifice, or at least dropping those past assumptions, those expectations, and putting a new value system in place for ourselves. That maybe in the long run, if we sacrifice a little bit short-term materialistic pursuits in the interest of the long-term goodwill and well-being of our friends, our neighbors, and our community, then we can all work together and actually, the golden rule really does work. And the more you give to others, sooner or later, the more you will get back. We have to all believe that, and we have to live on that principle. It's about giving. It's about loving. It's about sharing. It's about opening our homes to others, to finding a way to cooperate, to realizing that every human being on the planet is just the same as we are, and just as special. And the only reason we're really here is to help other people understand their own uniqueness and make their own contribution in the same way that you are doing. That's what'll drive the paradigm shift. We're seeking this inner coherence, a way of working together so that our waves are in phase and that we're not eliminating each other, but rather combining our efforts. So that global purpose movement and being part of the many movements of movements, it fluctuates with the will of human consciousness and drives these ideas forward. We really began what is now called the Global Purpose Movement back in 2013, when I first called a group of friends and individuals from various organizations who I thought would want to come together and explore this way of combining forces and finding our purpose in common and making it into a movement. Some of the early organizations that joined us were the Theosophical Society in America, Greenheart, of course, Integral Transformative Practice International, and the Institute of Noetic Sciences. All four of those organizations were part of the founding core of the Global Purpose Movement in 2013. And they helped inspire the logo of the four interlacing circles, which I drew to demonstrate to the individual organizations how this would work. Because as the circles overlap, you can see that on the outer ring, there's a part where we all, as individuals or organizations, still retain our individuality or our autonomy. We don't give up everything. We don't become part of the cosmic soup, but yet we work together in combination. And in the core of those overlapping circles is where we find that inner coherence of the cooperative nature of working together. And as throughout the symbol, there are points where 2 or 3 or more organizations may work together. So it's this, what I call holo movement. It's all working together kind of at once in multiple ways, but for one easy flow. David Bohm, the great physicist who wrote about the implicate order of things, described this holo movement. And Michael Talbot, who wrote a book on the holographic universe and how the universe is, in fact, a hologram. It's this picture, when you've seen a hologram, 3-dimensional piece of paper, but it looks like there's 4 dimensions. There's a deeper perceptible dimension of everything we're doing. This is the holo movement. And Michael Talbot, he wrote a little section in there giving an example of what holo movement is. He said, it's like riding a bicycle. in my own experience, learning to ride a bicycle, I tried to linear think it through. Like there's a whole different combination of muscular movements and balance and all this kind of stuff that I've all got to learn to figure out how to stay up and ride my bike, because I was a very left-brain, scientifically oriented child. And as a result, I was really terrible at learning how to ride a bike, until finally one day my mother just kind of grabbed me, put me at the top of the hill, gave me a push and said, go. And all of a sudden I thought, gosh, I didn't know my mom could run that fast. She's still behind me. And I kind of looked over my shoulder, and of course she wasn't there, and I was gliding down the hill because I'd forgotten about all the calculations and just let it flow and rode the bike. This is holo movement. This is what David Bohm, Michael Talbot, and many others are talking about. This is the movement of movements, where they all come together, they are in coherence, they are in phase. You get on a bike, you pedal away, and you flow. The state of flow, which has also been very well documented. This is what we're trying to find. And this symbol of the global purpose movement is how the flow of organizations and like-minded ideas interweave and work together, become entangled, and become this web of oneness in the spirit of life. So we began in 2013 with the Global Purpose Movement. We organized a couple of events every year. We tried to move it around. We held the original meeting in Sedona, Arizona, one of my very favorite places because of its special energy that the earth gives there. We had meetings in Chicago, in California, at Sunrise Ranch, in Colorado, back to Sedona. Then we developed purpose summits. We had 2 summits in the San Francisco Bay Area, another summit in Berlin. And over the last 5 or 6 years, we've increased in the size and number of these gatherings that we bring together as part of the Global Purpose Movement, where people can sit down and hear ideas, listen to an inspiring music, share their concepts on panel discussions, an open conversation, a new dialogue, a new vision for our purpose on the planet, creating this new purpose on the planet for a coherent, cooperative vision of oneness in a holo movement. And it's moving forward. It's happening more all the time. At this point in my life, I'm really concerned with taking action. I feel like I've spent a half a century thinking, debating, talking, probably talking way too much. As I said, I can talk philosophy till I'm blue in the face. It may sound nice and comforting, but I'm not sure how many lives it really changes. It's social action that changes things. Rolling up your sleeves, getting out there, finding a project, and doing something. And it doesn't have to be on a large scale. We're looking for people to do small but significant things in community efforts. So this is really about saving our environment, improving the rate of deterioration, bringing things around, restoring the institutions of our democracies, and above all, healing community, I think, is a very significant part. The paraphrase of the famous statement by Margaret Mead that the only way the world really does change is by small groups of like-minded individuals working together in community spirit. That is the way forward. It's no longer our world leaders or our politicians or our corporate CEOs. We hope they'll come around. We hope they'll share the vision. We trust they will, but we're not depending on them. We're not waiting for them. We are today's leaders. Each and every individual who suffered through their story of separation all their life are now making that turn in the great wave of human consciousness towards unity, towards peace, toward the spirit of cooperation that the global purpose movement represents, creating a planet with true purpose, the purpose of the deep human values in our heart, that we know we can be as good as we were meant to be, that we can live together, work together, and prosper into an ever brighter future.
Join us for the Purpose Earth event, September 19th, 2020, at United Palace in New York City.